Every pilot learns one rule on day one. Documentation saves careers. Captain Preston Cole forgot that rule. And today, on Flight 486 from Denver to Washington, D.C., he's about to learn why 20 years of flight time means nothing when you can't prove you followed the rules. Because the safety report he just crumpled up and threw in the trash, it was the only evidence that could have saved him. And the flight attendant who wrote it, she's already sent copies to people who actually care about regulations. In 72 hours, the FAA will come knocking, and Preston Cole won't have any answers. It's 10:15 a.m. Denver International Airport, Gate B37. The Airbus A321 sits ready at the jetway. Registration N4827W, bound for Washington Dulles. 185 passengers, 3 hours, 20 minutes flight time, clear skies, routine domestic run. The kind of flight Preston Cole could fly in his sleep, which is exactly how he approaches it. Captain Preston Cole walks through the terminal with the easy confidence of someone who's never been wrong. 45 years old, 6 foot even, athletic build maintained through CrossFit and cycling, 17 years with the airline, 9 years as captain. His uniform is sharp, 4 gold stripes crisp against navy blue, aviator sunglasses hooked in his chest pocket, a smartwatch tracking his fitness metrics. His face carries the practiced ease of technical competence. He knows he's good. Everyone knows he's good. Preston learned to fly at 23. Private pilot license at a small Arizona flight school. Commercial rating 2 years later. Built hours as a flight instructor, then regional carrier first officer, then major airline. He climbed fast because he's talented, naturally gifted, the kind of pilot who understands aerodynamics intuitively, who can hand fly an approach in crosswinds that would ground others, who troubleshoots technical problems faster than mechanics. He's the pilot other pilots respect. The one passengers are lucky to have, the one who can handle anything except paperwork. Preston hates paperwork. Flight plans are automated. Weight and balance is calculated by computers. Maintenance logs are digital. Dispatch handles fuel planning. Why should pilots waste time double-checking what machines already calculated? Why should skilled aviators fill out forms when they could be flying? In Preston's world, bureaucracy is the enemy of efficiency. Rules are for average pilots who need checklists to remember basic procedures. Documentation is for people covering their asses instead of doing their jobs. He's been cutting corners on paperwork for years. Nothing major, just efficiency. Skipping the detailed pre-flight walk-around when he's flown the same aircraft yesterday, signing off maintenance items without reading the full discrepancy log, approving MEL deferrals without verifying the restrictions, accepting fuel loads without confirming reserve calculations, small things, shortcuts, time savers, things that have never caused problems until today. Preston enters the gate area and heads directly for the aircraft. He doesn't check in with the gate agent, doesn't review the passenger manifest, doesn't verify the final weight and balance, just walks onto the A321 and heads to the cockpit. First Officer Marcus Webb is already there. 38 years old, 7 years with the airline, competent, professional, the kind of first officer who does what he's told and doesn't ask questions. Perfect for flying with Preston. They run through the preliminary cockpit setup. Preston barely glances at the paperwork. Flight plan looks fine. Computers generated it. Weather is good. Dispatch sent it. Aircraft is airworthy. It flew in this morning without issues. Everything's routine. Marcus is more thorough. He actually reads the maintenance log, notes 3 deferred items under MEL, minimum equipment list, 2 galley ovens inoperative, 1 lavatory light out, all minor, all legal to fly with, but Marcus notices something. One of the MEL items, the aft galley oven, has restrictions. It requires the cabin crew to verify meal service can be completed with reduced equipment. The restriction requires notification to the lead flight attendant before departure. Marcus mentions it to Preston. Captain, we've got an MEL on the aft galley. Needs cabin crew notification. Preston waves it off. It's just an oven, they'll figure it out. The MEL says we need to brief them. Marcus, I've got 4,000 hours on this aircraft. An inoperative oven doesn't affect flight safety. Let's focus on actual flying. Marcus hesitates, but Preston is the captain, the authority, the experienced one, so Marcus lets it go. Mistake number 1. In the cabin, Katherine Wells completes her pre-departure duties. 52 years old, 20 years with the airline, lead flight attendant. She wears the uniform with quiet excellence. Navy blue jacket perfectly pressed, service pins indicating 2 decades of service, silver hair styled in a professional cut. Her face shows kindness and competence in equal measure. She's worked thousands of flights, seen everything, knows everyone. Katherine isn't just experienced, she's educated. 6 months ago, she completed the airline's Safety Management System certification, a voluntary program most flight attendants never bother with. The training covered hazard identification, risk assessment, safety reporting procedures, regulatory compliance. She learned how airlines track safety metrics, how the FAA audits operations, how documentation protects both crew and passengers. She takes safety seriously, always has. It's why she survived 20 years in an industry with high turnover. It's why she's respected by crews and passengers alike. Katherine checks the galleys. The forward galley is functional. The aft galley shows the MEL placard, oven 2 inoperative. She reviews her meal service plan, 185 passengers, full meal service. 2 ovens down means she'll need to adjust timing, heat meals in batches, extend service time. She needs to know if there are operational restrictions, needs to verify with the cockpit. Katherine walks to the cockpit, knocks professionally. Preston opens the door, barely glancing at her. Captain Cole, I see we have an MEL on the aft galley oven. Are there any operational restrictions I should know about? Preston doesn't even check the log. No restrictions, it's just an oven. You'll manage. The MEL placard says cockpit notification is required. I just notified you. The oven is broken. Serve meals however you want. We're good. Katherine's instincts tingle. Something is off. The captain should have briefed her before she came asking, should have reviewed the restrictions, should have confirmed the meal service plan, but she doesn't push. Not yet. She's learned that challenging captains rarely goes well for flight attendants. Better to document and move forward. She returns to the cabin, opens her personal notebook, a small leather-bound journal she carries on every flight. She's been keeping these notes for 3 years, records of unusual events, safety concerns, passenger incidents. Nothing official, just personal documentation. She writes, 10:35 a.m. Captain Cole did not brief MEL oven restriction per requirement. When asked, dismissed without reviewing paperwork. Small thing, probably nothing. But Katherine documents everything. Boarding completes. Passengers settled. Doors close. The A321 pushes back from gate B37. Engines start. Normal. Routine. Safe. Preston taxis to runway 16R. He's relaxed. Confident. This is the 200th time he's flown Denver to D.C. He could do it blindfolded. Tower clears them for takeoff. Preston advances the thrust levers. The A321 accelerates down the runway. Rotation, liftoff, gear up, flaps retracted, climb power set, everything by the book. Preston is an excellent stick and rudder pilot, nobody can deny that. But 90 seconds after takeoff, the first real problem appears. Denver departure calls, Sky 486, climb and maintain flight level 230. Preston acknowledges, sets the altitude in the autopilot, but he doesn't verify the restriction, doesn't check the departure procedure. Marcus sees it immediately. The departure procedure has an altitude restriction at a specific waypoint, crossing restriction due to traffic flow. They're supposed to level off at flight level 210, not climb directly to 230. Captain, we got a crossing restriction at Rams intersection. That's old procedure. They updated it last month. I'm looking at the current chart. It still shows, Marcus, I fly this route twice a week. Trust me. They verbally cleared us to 230. That overrides the chart. Marcus isn't sure. The verbal clearance seemed straightforward, but the chart clearly shows a restriction. He should query ATC. Confirm he doesn't. Preston is the captain, 17 years experience. He knows this route. So Marcus stays quiet. They blow through the crossing restriction at 21,000 feet, still climbing. Denver departure doesn't catch it immediately. They're busy with traffic, but it's a violation, a deviation from the published procedure, a mistake that goes into the FAA database if anyone files a report. Katherine, in the aft galley, feels the unusual climb profile. After 20 years, she knows what normal feels like. This isn't it. They're climbing steeper, faster than usual for this departure. She makes another note. 10:52 a.m. Unusual climb profile on departure. Steeper than normal for DEN-IAD route. Still in the cabin, one of the junior flight attendants, Sarah, 2 years experience, comes to Katherine with a concern. During boarding, she noticed a passenger in row 23 putting an oversized carry-on in the overhead bin. The bag was clearly too large, should have been gate checked, but the passenger insisted, and the gate agent didn't catch it. Now, during climb, that overhead bin is showing stress. The latch is straining. The bin door is slightly bowed. It's not going to fail, probably, but it's a safety concern. If turbulence hits, that bin could pop open. The oversized bag could fall. Someone could get hurt. Sarah wants to move the bag to the closet, but the passenger is refusing, wants Katherine to handle it. Katherine walks to row 23, explains politely but firmly. The bag needs to be restowed. It's a safety issue. The passenger reluctantly agrees. Katherine takes the bag to the forward closet. It barely fits. She has to remove a crew coat to make space. She notices something else. The closet has a maintenance placard. The closet door latch is also MELD. Same flight, 2 separate MEL items affecting storage. She pulls out her phone, takes a photo of the placard, documents the situation, returns to her journal, writes, 11:05 a.m. oversized carry-on from row 23 caused overhead bin stress, gate screening failure, moved to forward closet which is also MEL'd for latch, multiple storage issues, same flight. She's starting to see a pattern, small failures, accumulating, individually minor, collectively concerning. At cruising altitude, Preston disengages the autopilot briefly. He likes to hand fly occasionally, keep skills sharp. He banks the aircraft gently left, then right. Smooth inputs, professional technique. He's showing off a little for Marcus, see? This is real flying, not monitoring computers. But while hand flying, Preston isn't watching the navigation display closely. He drifts slightly off course, not much, half a mile, barely noticeable. Marcus sees it. Captain, we're drifting south, of course. Preston glances at the display, corrects casually. Just giving passengers a smoother ride. I was avoiding some light chop. There was no chop. The ride is smooth. Marcus knows it, doesn't say it. Re-engage autopilot, back on course. Another small deviation, another potential violation if anyone reports it. Katherine is in the forward galley when the fasten seatbelt sign illuminates briefly, then goes off. She didn't feel any turbulence, didn't hear any PA announcement. The sign just clicked on for 5 seconds, then off. She calls the cockpit on the interphone. Captain, did you mean to turn on the seatbelt sign? What? No, must have been a glitch. It came on for about 5 seconds, then went off. Probably bumped the switch, don't worry about it. Katherine hangs up, writes in her journal, 11:28 a.m. Fasten seatbelt sign activated briefly without announcement or reason. Captain says accidental. Crew confusion. She's now documented 4 separate issues. Individually, they're nothing. Pilot discretion, minor technical items, normal operations, but Katherine sees what others don't. She sees a pilot who doesn't check paperwork, who dismisses procedures, who makes small errors and doesn't acknowledge them, who treats safety documentation as nuisance instead of necessity. She's seen this before. Pilots who think skill exempts them from rules, who believe experience means they don't need to verify, who shortcut procedures because they've never crashed, until the day when all those small shortcuts add up to one big problem. Katherine decides to write a formal safety report. She'll document everything, submit it to the airline safety department. Let the professionals evaluate whether these incidents represent a pattern. It's the right thing to do, the professional thing, the thing her SMS training taught her to do. She drafts the report on her phone during a quiet moment. Concise, factual, no emotion, just observations. Flight 486 DEN to IAD. Captain P. Cole. Failed to brief MEL restrictions per procedure. Possible altitude deviation on departure. Unusual climb profile. Possible lateral navigation deviation. Passenger view. Inadvertent seatbelt sign activation without announcement. Multiple MEL items affecting cabin operations. Recommendation: review captain's adherence to documentation and procedural requirements. She saves it as a draft. She'll finish it after landing, submit through proper channels. But first, she wants to give Preston a chance. Maybe he's having a bad day. Maybe he's distracted. Maybe if she shows him what she's seeing, he'll correct course. Do better. Professional courtesy. That's all. As the flight approaches Washington airspace, Katherine prints a copy of her notes. Informal, just observations. She walks to the cockpit during cruise, knocks politely. Preston opens the door, looks annoyed. What now? Captain, I wanted to share some observations from today's flight. Just safety concerns I thought you should be aware of. Preston sees the paper in her hand. Safety report. Documentation, bureaucracy, exactly the kind of thing he hates. His face hardens. Are you seriously trying to file a report on me? I'm not filing anything yet. I just wanted to show you what I've noticed so we can what? So you can teach me how to fly? I've been a captain for 9 years. I don't need a flight attendant to tell me about safety. Katherine keeps her voice calm, professional. Captain, I'm SMS-certified. It's my job to identify hazards. Preston snatches the paper from her hand, reads it quickly. His expression shifts from annoyed to furious. This is garbage? You're documenting normal flight operations as safety concerns? I didn't violate anything. I used pilot discretion. That's my authority. I'm not saying you violated. You're writing me up for bumping a switch? For hand-flying my own aircraft? For making a captain's decision about an MEL briefing? Captain, I'm just trying to... Preston crumples the paper, walks to the cockpit trash bin, throws it away. There, problem solved. I don't need flight attendants playing safety inspector. You want to file a report? Go ahead, waste your time. But this? He gestures to the trash. This is where your paperwork belongs. Katherine stands in the cockpit doorway, silent, calm. Her expression doesn't change. She doesn't argue, doesn't escalate. She just nods once. Understood, Captain. She leaves the cockpit, returns to the galley, opens her phone. The draft report is still there, complete, detailed, with timestamps. She makes one addition. Captain was presented with informal summary of observations. He destroyed the document and stated he does not require safety input from flight attendants. Then she does something Preston didn't expect. Something he didn't know was possible. Something his arrogance prevented him from considering. She sends the report, not as a draft, as a formal submission, directly to the airline safety department with copies to the chief pilot's office and the SMS coordinator and her union safety representative, 4 copies, sent at 1:47 p.m. while Preston is still in the cockpit, while he thinks he won, while he believes throwing away paper makes problems disappear. Katherine also does one more thing. She downloads the flight tracking data from her personal aviation app, takes screenshots of the departure path showing the altitude profile, documents the timeline, creates evidence. Because Katherine Wells learned something in 20 years of flying. Documentation protects everyone, especially when someone thinks they're too good to need it. The A321 begins its descent into Washington. Preston flies a perfect approach, smooth landing, professional taxi, gates at Dulles right on time. Passengers deplane. Crew packs up. Normal post-flight routine. Preston doesn't know that in an office 3 time zones away, a safety department analyst is already reading Katherine's report, flagging it for investigation, cross-referencing Preston's flight history. He doesn't know that the FAA just issued a random audit notification for his airline's operations. Standard procedure. Happens every quarter, routine compliance check. He doesn't know that Katherine's report will be the first thing the FAA sees when they arrive. He doesn't know his career just ended because he threw away a piece of paper. 72 hours after Flight 486 lands, Preston Cole is having coffee in the crew lounge at Denver International. He's scheduled for another DC run, same route, same aircraft type, Just another Tuesday. His phone buzzes. Email from Chief Pilot's office. Subject line, required meeting, safety review. Preston skims it. Standard bureaucracy. Probably some new training requirement. Always something. He ignores it. He'll deal with it after his flight. He doesn't know that at this exact moment, 3 FAA inspectors are entering the airline's headquarters. Credentials ready. Audit notice in hand. Random compliance inspection. They've done this a dozen times this year at different carriers. Routine, professional, thorough. The inspectors meet with the airline's director of safety. Standard protocol, they request access to recent safety reports, incident documentation, training records, maintenance logs. The director hands them a tablet. The airline's safety database, real-time access to all reported incidents from the past 90 days. Katherine's report is at the top, filed 3 days ago. Status, under investigation. The lead FAA inspector reads it. Then reads it again. His expression doesn't change, but he makes a note. This isn't random anymore. This is targeted. We'd like to review Captain Cole's complete flight history, the inspector says. Last 12 months. All safety reports involving this pilot, training records, check ride results, everything. The director of safety nods, pulls up Preston's file, hands over the data. What they find is a pattern. 12 months ago, a gate agent filed a report about Preston departing before completing final weight and balance verification, minor verbal counseling. 9 months ago, a maintenance technician noted that Preston signed off an aircraft as airworthy without reviewing all open discrepancy items, warning letter placed in file. 6 months ago, a first officer reported that Preston deviated from published departure procedures, claiming he knew a better way. Investigation inconclusive. 4 months ago, another flight attendant submitted a report about Preston dismissing a passenger safety concern without proper documentation. No action taken, he said/she said situation. Individually, each incident was minor, explained away, forgotten. Together, they tell a story. A pilot who consistently prioritizes his judgment over procedures, who dismisses documentation, who believes rules are suggestions. The FAA inspector makes another note. We need to interview Captain Cole today. Back at Denver, Preston completes his pre-flight for Flight 519 to D.C. Different aircraft, different first officer, same routine. His phone rings. Chief Pilot's office. Direct call, not email. Preston, we need you to return to headquarters immediately. Don't board your flight. We're assigning a reserve captain. What? I'm about to push back. What's this about? FAA is here. They want to interview you about safety procedures. It's urgent. Preston's stomach drops. FAA interview. That's not routine. That's serious. Is this about that flight attendant report? That was nothing. She was overreacting. Just get here now. Preston drives to headquarters, his mind racing. What did Katherine report? What did they find? He threw away her notes. There's no evidence, right? He arrives at 2:30 p.m. He's escorted to a conference room. 3 FAA inspectors, the chief pilot, the director of safety, a union representative. The lead inspector doesn't waste time. Captain Cole, we're conducting a review of your adherence to operational procedures and documentation requirements. We've received a safety report and have identified a pattern of procedural deviations. We'd like to hear your perspective. Preston tries to stay calm, confident. He's good at talking his way through things. I'm not sure what pattern you're referring to. I follow all FAA regulations. My safety record is clean. The inspector opens a folder, slides it across the table. It's Katherine's report. Complete, detailed, time-stamped. Let's start with Flight 486. Can you explain why you didn't brief the MEL restrictions to the cabin crew as required? Preston hesitates. That was a minor galley equipment issue. It didn't affect safety. The flight attendant asked, I told her the oven was in op. That's sufficient. The MEL specifically requires detailed briefing of operational restrictions. Did you review those restrictions before departure? I knew the oven was broken. That's what matters. So you didn't read the full MEL entry? Silence. Preston realizes he's trapped. Admitting he didn't read it confirms the violation. Claiming he did means lying to the FAA. I used my experience and judgment. Captain, this isn't about judgment. It's about regulatory compliance. Did you or did you not review the MEL restrictions before flight? Preston's face reddens. I glanced at it. Glanced at it or read it completely? Look, I've flown with that MEL 100 times. I know what it says, but did you read it on flight 486? No. The word comes out quiet, defeated. The inspector makes a note, moves to the next item. The departure from Denver. Your first officer reported that you climbed through a published crossing restriction without ATC clearance. Can you explain? Preston's mind races. Marcus reported him. No, wait. Katherine mentioned unusual climb profile. Did she report that too? I received verbal clearance to 230. That overrides the chart. The inspector pulls up the ATC recording. We reviewed the tapes. You were cleared to 230, but the departure procedure requires you to level at 210 at Rams intersection, then request higher. You didn't level off. You climbed through. That's a deviation. That's pilot discretion. I was maintaining safe separation. Captain, you violated a published procedure. Pilot discretion doesn't override charted restrictions without explicit ATC authorization. Did you request clearance to delete the crossing restriction? No. Another note, another violation. The interview continues for 90 minutes. Each item from Katherine's report, each documented observation, each procedural shortcut. Preston tries to defend each one, explains his reasoning, emphasizes his experience, his safety record, his technical skills, but the FAA doesn't care about skills. They care about compliance. And Preston can't prove he complied. Because he didn't document anything, didn't follow procedures, didn't take paperwork seriously. The inspector closes the folder. Captain Cole, based on this interview and the documentation we've reviewed, we're identifying multiple regulatory violations. FAR 121 non-compliance, procedural deviations, documentation failures. Preston's hands grip the table. What does that mean? It means we're initiating a formal investigation. Your airline will conduct an internal review. Depending on findings, this could result in suspension, additional training, or license action. License action? You're going to suspend my license over paperwork? Captain, aviation safety depends on procedures. You've demonstrated a pattern of disregarding those procedures. That's not paperwork, that's airmanship, and yours is deficient. The meeting ends. Preston is placed on administrative leave, effective immediately, pending investigation. He walks out of the conference room in shock. 9 years as captain, 17 years with the airline, never crashed, never had a serious incident, and now he's grounded because a flight attendant documented his shortcuts. He tries to call his union representative, gets voicemail, tries the chief pilot, no answer. Everyone's suddenly unavailable. He sits in his car in the parking lot, stares at his phone, opens the crew scheduling app. His name is still listed, but his status shows unavailable, admin leave. For the first time in 17 years, Preston Cole isn't flying. Meanwhile, Katherine Wells is working Flight 892 from Denver to Seattle. Normal service, professional crew, routine flight. She doesn't know about the FAA interview yet. Doesn't know her report triggered an investigation. She's just doing her job, documenting, observing, maintaining safety standards, because that's what SMS-certified professionals do. They identify hazards, report them, let the system work. Katherine's phone buzzes during cruise, text from the director of safety. Need to speak with you after your flight. Please call at your earliest convenience. She finishes her service, waits until landing, calls from the crew lounge. Katherine, this is Director Morrison. I wanted to thank you for your report on Flight 486. The FAA is here conducting an audit, and your documentation was instrumental. We're taking this very seriously. Katherine's heart races. FAA audit. She didn't expect that. She just wanted the airline to review Preston's behavior, help him improve. I wasn't trying to cause problems, Katherine says carefully. I was just concerned about the pattern. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. Your SMS training taught you to identify and report hazards. You followed procedure perfectly. Captain Cole, however, did not. What's going to happen? "That's not my decision. The FAA will complete their investigation. But Catherine, between you and me, you probably saved lives. Pilots like Cole think they're too good for rules. Eventually, that attitude kills people. You stopped it before it got that far." The call ends. Catherine sits in the quiet crew lounge. She doesn't feel victorious, doesn't feel satisfied. She feels tired, sad. She never wanted to end someone's career. She just wanted him to be safer. But safety isn't negotiable, and documentation matters. The investigation accelerates. The FAA digs deeper into Preston's history. They find more, so much more. Training records show multiple instances where Preston argued with instructors about procedures. Check ride evaluations note resistant to feedback and dismissive of regulatory discussion. His logbook shows pattern of minimum times on required documentation. Pre-flight inspections logged at impossibly short intervals. Walkarounds completed in 3 minutes when regulations require thorough inspection. They interview other crew members, first officers, flight attendants, gate agents, maintenance staff. The stories accumulate. Preston rushing through pre-flight paperwork. Preston signing documents without reading them. Preston dismissing safety concerns. Preston telling crew members, "I know better than the regulations." Every story individually explainable. Together damning. The airline has no choice. They can't defend him. The pattern is clear. The documentation is thorough. Thanks to Catherine's detailed report, everything is time-stamped, witnessed, verified. 2 weeks after Flight 486, Preston receives a letter from the airline, from the FAA, from his union. The airline terminates his employment, effective immediately, for cause. Pattern of procedural violations and regulatory non-compliance. The FAA revokes his airline transport pilot certificate permanently, based on demonstrated disregard for safety regulations and failure to maintain required standards of airmanship. His union declines to fight it. The evidence is overwhelming. The violation's clear. There's no defense. Preston Cole's flying career ends. Not with a crash, not with an incident, with paperwork. The very thing he spent 17 years dismissing. 3 months after Flight 486, Preston Cole sits in his apartment in suburban Denver. No uniform, no flight schedule, no purpose. His pilot certificate is revoked permanently. The FAA's decision was final, no appeals granted. His case became an example, distributed to every airline, every training program, every aviation safety course. The pilot who thought he was too good for procedures. Preston tried to fight it, hired a lawyer, filed appeals, argued that his technical skills were never in question, that he never had an accident, that his safety record was clean. The FAA's response was clinical. Certificate action is not based solely on accident history. It is based on demonstrated airmanship, regulatory compliance, and professional judgment. Captain Cole failed in all 3 areas. His lawyer told him the truth. They have everything documented, 20 separate violations over 18 months, multiple witness statements, FAA recordings, your own admissions during interview. There's no defense. Preston withdrew his appeal, accepted reality. His flying career was over. He tried to find other work, applied for dispatcher positions, ground operations, anything aviation related. Nobody would hire him. His termination was for cause. His FAA record was public. Every airline could see exactly why he lost his certificate. No aviation company wants someone with a documented history of procedural violations. He eventually found work at a logistics company, scheduling freight shipments, coordinating truck routes, office work, spreadsheets, and phone calls, nothing like flying. He makes $42,000 a year. As a captain, he made $210,000. His mortgage payment stayed the same. His lifestyle didn't. His wife left 6 weeks after the termination. She didn't blame him for losing the job. She blamed him for the arrogance that caused it, for years of dismissing her concerns, for treating everyone like they were beneath him, for believing rules didn't apply to him. Preston lives alone now, drives past the airport every day on his commute, watches aircraft climb out, knows he'll never be in that left seat again. He thinks about Katherine's report, the one he crumpled up, threw away, dismissed. If he'd read it, if he'd listened, if he'd taken it seriously and corrected his behavior, he'd still be flying, still have his career, still have his life. But he didn't, and now he works in an office, scheduling trucks, while younger pilots fly routes he used to own. The irony destroys him daily. Katherine Wells, meanwhile, continues flying. But not for long in her flight attendant role. 2 months after her report triggered the investigation, the airline's chief pilot calls her directly. Katherine, we've reviewed your SMS certification and your safety documentation work. We're impressed, very impressed. Thank you, sir. We have an opening, safety training manager position. Corporate headquarters, you'd be designing safety programs, conducting crew training, managing our SMS implementation across all bases. Katherine is silent. Safety training manager, that's a management position. Salary, benefits, career progression, but it means leaving the line. No more flights, no more passengers, no more galley service. Can I think about it? Of course, take your time. Katherine discusses it with her family. Her husband supports it. Her kids are proud, but she's conflicted. She loves flying, loves the crew camaraderie, loves helping passengers. Then she thinks about Preston, about all the pilots like him, the ones who think experience exempts them from rules, who dismiss safety reports, who need to learn that procedures exist for reasons. She can teach them, can shape the next generation, can make aviation safer from the inside. She accepts the position. Katherine Wells' last flight as a line flight attendant is Denver to Los Angeles. Full cabin, smooth flight, perfect service. Passengers thank her. Crew gives her a gift. The captain makes an announcement recognizing her 20 years of service. She walks off that aircraft for the last time knowing she's moving to something bigger. Her new office is at airline headquarters, spacious, windows overlooking the airport. Her title is on the door, Katherine Wells, Director of Safety Training and SMS Implementation. Her first project, redesigning the Captain Upgrade Training Program, adding modules on documentation requirements, regulatory compliance, the relationship between procedures and safety, real-world case studies. One case study features Flight 486, no names, just facts. A captain who dismissed safety concerns, who thought skills mattered more than paperwork, who lost everything because he couldn't document basic compliance. Every Captain Upgrade candidate studies that case, discusses it, writes analysis papers. Many of them guess it's Preston Cole. None of them want to become him. Katherine also implements changes to the safety reporting system, makes it easier for flight attendants to submit concerns, requires cockpit crews to acknowledge and respond to cabin safety reports, creates accountability. The FAA notices, praises the airline's proactive safety culture, uses their program as a model for other carriers. Katherine receives awards, National Safety Council recognition, FAA Distinguished Service Commendation, her airline's highest internal honor. But the recognition she values most comes 6 months into her new role. A young first officer, female, recently upgraded, approaches her after a training session. Ms. Wells, I just wanted to say thank you. The case study about the captain who dismissed safety reports, that could have been me. I used to think documentation was waste of time. Your training changed my perspective. I'll never shortcut procedures again. Katherine smiles. That's exactly why we do this work. The young pilot leaves. Katherine returns to her office, sits at her desk, looks out the window at aircraft taxiing for departure. She thinks about Preston, wonders where he is, what he's doing, if he learned anything. She'll never know that Preston watches those same aircraft from a warehouse parking lot 20 miles away, that he thinks about her report every single day, that he finally understands what she tried to tell him. Documentation isn't bureaucracy, it's protection, it's proof, it's the difference between a career and a cautionary tale. 1 year after Flight 486, the airline publishes its annual safety report. Incidents down 18%, procedural compliance up 22%, safety reporting increased 35%. The report credits enhanced safety culture and improved reporting mechanisms implemented under the direction of Director Katherine Wells. The board of directors reads it. The CEO calls Katherine to his office. Katherine, we're creating a new position, Vice President of Safety and Regulatory Compliance, corporate officer level. You'd oversee all safety operations across the company, training, SMS, regulatory interface, FAA coordination. This is a big job. Katherine looks at the offer letter. The salary is 3 times what she made as a flight attendant. The responsibility is enormous. The impact could be industry-wide. She accepts. At 43 years old, Katherine Wells becomes one of the youngest VPs in airline history, one of the few who rose from cabin crew to corporate leadership, one of the only safety executives with 20 years of frontline operational experience. She doesn't forget where she came from, doesn't lose touch with line crews. She flies occasionally as an observer, sits in jump seats, talks to flight attendants, listens to concerns. She becomes the person she needed when she was starting out, the advocate, the believer, the one who takes safety reports seriously. 2 years after Flight 486, Katherine speaks at an aviation safety conference. Her topic, documentation and culture, how one report changed everything. She doesn't name Preston, doesn't need to. Everyone in aviation knows the story. The captain who threw away a safety report, who lost his career because he thought paperwork didn't matter. In her speech, Katherine says, safety culture isn't about punishing people, it's about protecting everyone. When we document concerns, we create accountability. When we follow procedures, we build trust. When we respect the system protects us. One pilot forgot that, but thousands learned from his mistake. That's how we get better, one report at a time. The audience, pilots, executives, regulators, safety professionals, gives her a standing ovation. After the conference, a young male captain approaches her, nervous, respectful. Ms. Wells, I was in Captain Cole's upgrade class 6 years ago. He was my instructor. He taught me that good pilots don't need checklists. That documentation is for average aviators. I believed him. Katherine waits. Lets him continue. Then I read about Flight 486. Read your report, took your training course. I realized he was wrong. I've changed everything about how I fly. I follow every procedure. I read every MEL. I take every safety report seriously. Because of you. Katherine smiles. You changed because you chose to learn. That's on you, Captain. But thank you for telling me. The young captain leaves. Katherine watches him go. Knows he'll be okay, knows he'll never become Preston Cole. That's the victory, not ending one career, creating thousands of better ones. In suburban Denver, Preston Cole reads the article about Katherine's promotion to VP. He sits in his small apartment, alone, bitter, defeated. He could hate her, could blame her for ruining his life, could spend years angry at the flight attendant who documented his failures. But deep down, in the quiet moments he won't admit to anyone, Preston knows the truth. Katherine didn't ruin his career. She just wrote down what he did. He ruined it himself. Every shortcut, every dismissed concern, every crumpled report, every time he thought he was too good for procedures. He destroyed his own career. Katherine just documented it. 3 years after Flight 486, the aviation industry publishes new guidance on crew resource management. The document explicitly states, safety concerns raised by any crew member, regardless of position, must be acknowledged, documented, and addressed through established channels. It's called the Wells Protocol, named after Katherine. Airlines worldwide adopt it, training programs teach it, regulators enforce it, and somewhere in classrooms full of aspiring pilots, instructors tell the story of Flight 486. The captain who threw away a safety report, the flight attendant who saved it, the career that ended because someone thought paperwork didn't matter. It becomes legend, cautionary tale, required reading. The lesson is simple. In aviation, everything is documented, everything matters, everyone is accountable. Preston Cole learned that lesson 3 years too late. Katherine Wells learned it 20 years earlier, and now she teaches it to everyone who listens. Because documentation saves careers, procedures save lives, and the people you underestimate might be the people who save you from yourself if you let them.